In this series, we've looked at several names and titles of Jesus, but this week's question has to do with one of the most common ones, and that's the Messiah. The Old Testament foretold of a specially chosen individual, and this individual would come and save the people from sin. In the New Testament, this person was frequently called the Christ, but in the Old Testament, he was called the Messiah. And these two words, Christ in the New Testament, Messiah in the Old Testament, they mean the same thing, anointed one. In biblical tradition, anointing was pouring oil over the head of a specially chosen individual to show that they had been specially set apart by God to do his work. And this was usually reserved for prophets, priests, and kings. So someone who was anointed was someone with a very special and God-given purpose. By calling Jesus the Messiah, it showed that Jesus was the specially chosen one that was talked about in the Old Testament. He was like a prophet because he taught God's words to the people. He was like a priest because he brought reconciliation between God and man. And one day, he will be like a king because God has chosen him to rule over the world in righteousness. Now, unfortunately, the Jews at the time of Jesus misunderstood the work of this promised Messiah. They expected their Messiah to redeem the nation of Israel by overthrowing the rule of the Romans. But Jesus' role at that time wasn't political. It was spiritual. Rather than come to free the people from human oppression, he'd come to free humanity from the power of sin. And that's why Jesus was called the Messiah.